This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and exciting times here. This is the Gigabyte Aero 15X. A lot of you have been asking me to review the Gigabyte 15 line for some time now, but they're hard to get a hold of in the United States. They just don't have much of a PR presence to work with reviewers. Well, happily, the folks at Computer Upgrade King, Cuck USA, got us a review loaner because they sell them. What's so special about this, and who's this for? Well, it's pretty neat because it's a gaming laptop that has barely there bezels. You don't usually see this on anything other than some trendy ultrabooks like the Dell XPS 15 and Dell XPS 13. It's extremely thin and light. It's 4.49 pounds, which is 2 kilograms and 18.9 millimeters thin. Yet it doesn't have a tiny battery. A lot of thin and light gaming laptops get that way by cutting out battery capacities. They have terrible battery life. This one has a humongous battery and good battery life. We're going to talk about that. Intel 8th generation coffee like 6-core CPU inside and NVIDIA GTX 1070 Max-Q GPU. So a heck of a lot of power in a skinny package with an aluminum casing that's pretty darn nice looking. It might not be razor blade level chic or a MacBook Pro looking, but it's pretty good, and it's certainly the adult in the room, shall we say. If you don't want your laptop to scream, "I play PUBG all day and all night," well, this is it. We're going to look at it now. So the Aero 15X competes with the MSI Stealth line, and I've reviewed those, MSI's thin and light gaming laptops, but this one has a more adult, and I would say probably more aesthetically pleasing kind of look. That is up to you. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder. There's also the Asus ROG Zephyrus, which is a pretty nice looking machine, and not that overstated at all, but it has that weird drop down bottom, and a little bit gimmicky there, that you're paying something for a feature that maybe isn't worth it. I leave that one up to you too. They've improved the Zephyrus a lot, that said. But also, more importantly, with machines like the Dell XPS 15, imagine that. That's because this has that understated sort of professional quality look, maybe not as fancy metal looking as the XPS 15, but pretty darn nice looking, but you get more horsepower in here. You get that same barely there kind of bezel design on the display, which is pretty nice, and you have 1080p and 4K display options, just like with the Dell. But you get an NVIDIA GTX 1070 Max-Q GPU in here, which is basically a 1070 that's been undervolted a bit, so it's within 8 to 10% of the performance level of its traditional GTX 1070, but a lot less heat, so it can be put in thin and light laptops. You still get that 8 gigabytes of GDDR5 VRAM inside, so that's why it's better than, say, going with the 1060, I would say. You got more VRAM on board, you've got more shaders, you got more everything in here, and you could try overclocking if you wanted, but given how thin and light it is and how thermally constrained, not so much. So that makes this a pretty unique proposition. I just want to thank our sponsor for this video, Warby Parker. They sell stylish, affordable, and high-quality eyeglasses, and you do the whole thing online, so no going to the store. You can consult everybody that you need to consult. When you're trying glasses, you want to ask your mother, your brother, your sister, your lover, whoever it is. Well, you can do it because 5 pairs of eyeglasses, these are sample frames, get sent to your house risk-free, which means you don't pay nothing. They send them to you, you try them on, you decide which, if any of these you like, and then prepaid shipping label, you send it back to them. So inside, you get glasses like this. And these are the ones that I chose of the 5. What do you think? I think these look pretty good on me. Anyway, so the glasses start at $95, and that includes the prescription lenses. That doesn't mean frames only, which you would think for that price, because that's pretty inexpensive. And anti-glare coating is included. Not only that, for every pair of glasses sold, Warby Parker distributes a pair of glasses to somebody in need. Be sure to order your own free home try-on kit with free ground shipping. That's warbyparker.com/MTR, lowercase MTR. Oh, and they have an app too. One thing that's not as great maybe as, say, certainly Dell or even to a certain extent Asus and MSI is Gigabyte software. You've got their updater software, you've got their quick settings software, basically. You have the keyboard color manager stuff, which isn't bad. It looks a little more roughly hewn, not as polished, shall we say. And sometimes when you do download their driver updates and stuff like that, they're not even signed or named, so you have to go through extra hoops to install them. For a company that's as big as Gigabyte, they should be doing better. Granted, Gigabyte is known more as a motherboard and an enthusiast motherboard manufacturer more than a laptop manufacturer still, but yeah, they could do a little better with that. In terms of casing rigidity, it's very good, despite the fact that this is thin and that it's aluminum on the casing. Now, why would I say aluminum is less rigid? Because very thin aluminum does tend to flex more. In fact, just like the 14-inch razor blade, if you pick this up and you squeeze it kind of in the fan area underneath, you can actually get the casing to rub against the fans, and you'll hear it happening, and you'll say, oops, and you'll stop squeezing it over there, and then it'll be all better. By the way, the fans, in case you do like a little bit of bling, they have RGB lighting too. And of course, you can control all of the lighting. If you just wanted to be white backlighting on the keyboard and understated, you can do that too. But they have Gigabyte Fusion software, and they call it the Gigabyte Fusion keyboard. So you've got RGB per key backlighting there with macro control, and all that's pretty good. The keyboard itself is on the low travel side, but it's okay. It's a bit stiff, but it's something you can get used to. I don't dislike it. It just feels a little more, oh, I got to press a little bit harder until you get used to it. Overall, I like the keyboard quite well. The Elan glass trackpad, well, you know, gaming laptops always seem to have meh trackpads, so this one is slightly better than meh, and that's a good thing. With MSI and Asus, they're worse than meh. Dell XPS 15, of course, has an even nicer trackpad, but still, I guess they figure you're going to be using a mouse. It's a gaming laptop, in name anyway. The specs you can see on screen, but what's exciting here is that one of the first Intel 8th Gen Coffee Lake 6-core CPUs, so that's the 8750H. That's a lot of horsepower. That's somewhere between 20 and 40% improvement in terms of performance. Not that typically we saw a lot of CPU holding games back. They're usually more GPU dependent, but for those of you who are using this for, say, ZBrush, there are a lot of programs that still actually use the CPU to do modeling and all that sort of thing. It can help. If you like RTS games, that's very CPU bound. It's going to help. Future-proofing, that's nice. So we won't complain about a performance improvement. The NVIDIA GTX 1070 Max-Q is in here, and again, like I said, for thin and lights, it totally makes sense. You're getting a lot of performance, and you're getting really good frame rates on high settings with today's most demanding games, so that's a win. You have 2 RAM slots. That's another thing that's nice here. This may be a thin and light laptop, but it's quite upgradable still. 2 RAM slots, DDR4, 2400 megahertz RAM is how it ships. So you can get it with a 16 gig module, and you can add another 16 to go up to 32 and dual channel it. Don't care about dual channels so much here because most of the time you're going to be using dedicated graphics anyway. And graphics is where dual versus single channel makes the most difference. You have a PCIe NVMe SSD in here. In fact, there are 2 slots, which is kind of unusual. That's nice as well. And most special of all is the fact that it has a 94 watt-hour battery. That is huge. The only other place you're going to see something like that in a gaming laptop typically is the Alienware line. The Alienware 15, you can get that along with NVIDIA Optimus switchable graphics, which we have here, for long battery life, but that Alienware is much bigger and much heavier. So like I said, all the other gaming laptops pretty much have really cut back on the capacity of the battery to bring you a thin and light gaming laptop. For those of you who need a powerful laptop on the road, doing pro apps I'm talking about. Obviously, gaming unplugged means not really great battery life, but when you're using it for everything else that you do in life, content production, streaming videos, all that sort of thing, it's going to last you. In fact, I was averaging about 8 hours of battery life when not gaming on this, including using things like Photoshop and a little bit of Premiere and stuff like that. That's really good. The charger on this is 180 watt, which is the appropriate wattage for this so that it will charge even when you're pushing it hard in gaming. So I will not complain about that. I know some people have said, oh, the charger's kind of big and heavy. Well, that's just the kind of charger that goes with a laptop that has this level of performance. It's appropriate. We have Intel 8265 AC Wi-Fi. I was really expecting to see 9260, which is what we're seeing with the first Coffee Lake machines that we've reviewed so far, but they're still with the last generation Wi-Fi card. That said, it's a fine card, so no real complaints there. One thing that's not so great, and just like the Dell XPS 15 and other no-bezel design laptops, is you have a chin cam, which may actually matter more here because those of you who are into gaming and say you're doing Twitch streaming and all that sort of thing, people are going to really admire the underside of your chin here. Oh well, it's an HD webcam. It's not particularly high resolution because they probably know you don't want a high resolution view of this area here. So the display is a big selling point. They have some marketing going on here. They have Pantone certified and all that sort of thing. And there are a couple of different color calibrations that are preloaded on. That said, it wasn't really calibrated all that accurately. It was kind of to the yellow-green side. Oh well, for you people who are doing professional content creation, thinking of it for your photo and your video editing, that sort of thing, you still probably want to calibrate it using a colorimeter. It's available with a 1080p or a 4K display. They're matte and they're non-touch. The 4K will set you back about $200 more. So the base price on this is $22.99, our model, so that would bring you up to $24.99 or so. And probably you're going to take a battery life hit with the 4K as well. The 4K display should get you a little bit higher color gamut. The metrics on this display, it's an AU Optronics display, are pretty good. You can see them on screen. They're perfectly respectable IPS display, but not too much IPS glow or backlight bleed. All in all, it is a very nice display. Once calibrated, it's very pleasing, and it's 144 hertz. Speaking of checking a lot of boxes, you got the bezel free, you got the 8th gen, you've got a 144 hertz display. Now it is IPS, so the response times, you know, for the pixels may not be super duper fast, but that's nice to have. And you actually have enough horsepower here that if you're playing something that's less demanding like Overwatch or PUBG or Fortnite, you might actually be able to hit those kind of frame rates. There's no G-Sync here though, because we have NVIDIA Optimus, which is switchable graphics. You can switch between Intel HD 630 graphics and the NVIDIA dedicated GPU. That's probably the right decision on their part because, again, this is a thin and light laptop that looks kind of professional, so you probably care about battery life a little bit more than G-Sync here. And you've got enough horsepower that frame rates syncing really isn't much of an issue. I'm not seeing a lot tearing in games anyway. It says stereo speakers and Dolby Audio software and all of that, and it's a thin and light laptop with thin and light sound. They're kind of thin sounding. This is not wildly loud. You know, you can play with your equalizer or download some third-party software and try to improve on it, but they're just okay. You're going to want to use headphones when you're gaming or any time you can really care about audio quality. So let's talk about heat and noise, the bugaboo of thin and light gaming laptops. It's not as bad as I expected, and that's a good thing. You know, like the MSI Stealth line, super high performance, and you can fry eggs on the bottom. There's a reason why they glue that faux suede on the bottom. It's so you don't get burned when you put it on your lap. So this one, the surface temperatures, and you can see our FLIR thermal imaging here, are actually, and this is the pitch of serious gaming in Fallout 4 and Far Cry 5, the surface temperatures are really not that bad, not that egregious. You really don't want to put on your lap because you also don't want stifled ventilation, but I've seen hotter. It's not too bad. The core temperatures on this for doing pro apps work, perfectly fine. Generally speaking, in the 70s centigrade, and that's fine for the cores. And the GPU with NVIDIA is never a problem in terms of temperatures. With Fallout 4, even the CPU temperatures were typically running at high, and 1080p, were typically in the low to mid 80s as well, and that's really quite good. But Far Cry 5, even newer and more demanding title, that pushed it, and it was actually doing thermal throttling. You can see the screen capture here, hardware info shows that it was thermal throttling pretty conservatively when the cores were at 92, 93, 94 centigrade. 100 is the max allowable, so I think it's getting close to 100. So yes, it's not impossible to make this throttle if you're playing something like Far Cry 5, but if you're playing a kind of slightly older game, or if you're playing PUBG again, or Overwatch, much less demanding titles, you're not going to run into that at all, and it's kind of par for the course for something this thin. Now that we've talked about heat, so how about fan noise? Well, it's a thin laptop with 2 fans. It's going to make some noise when you're gaming. It's on the high-pitched end because they're thin, small fans, but it's not that bad. It's not annoying, but it makes plenty of noise when it's gaming. Otherwise, really, it's not that bad at all. And the Smart Manager here does have fan tweak, as they call it, so you can choose gaming, normal, quiet, and obviously you won't choose quiet when you're gaming, or you can set your own customized settings over here. Speaking of more popular buzzword sort of things, or actually good specs in this case, this has Thunderbolt 3 4-lane, so I suppose in the future when the GTX 970 Max-Q becomes obsolete, it's going to take a while. You can use an eGPU with this. Of course, you have USB standard A ports on this. You have both HDMI and DisplayPort, good times there, Ethernet, and an SD card slot. Yay. Now for the internals, usually, you know, I always in my videos open these up and show them to you, but unfortunately the unit that we received has been used before and somebody stripped the screws on the bottom, so I can't take off the bottom cover. But just to reiterate, you have 2 RAM slots, you have 2 M.2 SSD slots, PCIe, NVMe inside, so you can upgrade both of those things if you want. So that's the Gigabyte Aero 15X, this time with Intel 8th generation Coffee Lake CPUs inside. And Yes, indeed. It is one of the nicest, super thin and light, yet wildly powerful traditional design laptops that is not convertibles on the market. You've got a lot of graphics performance in here. You have certainly a lot of CPU performance. If you're doing gaming, yes, it's going to do the job. If you want this for pro apps, which I think a lot of people are looking for because of the more understated looks, it's got you covered there for 4K video, anything you want to do, some 3D modeling development, all of that sort of thing. The heat is, generally speaking, pretty well managed too. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.